contrite spirit. Uh, I think the problem is we let our hearts get too hard, and I try to have a tender heart for the Lord, always trying to discern spiritual things when I'm around Him. And like I said, having run into a couple of people in the middle of the dark continent that loved God, especially a woman like the Samaritan woman that has been following the Lord for years and years and years, begging God, and it seems like He's not listening. What a blessing that I had. So we'll talk about some different subjects about the trip, and then I'll be happy to entertain any questions. First off, we'll do some physical stuff and then some spiritual stuff. The travel absolutely sucked. It was rough. Traveling 9,000 miles each way, clear on the other side of the continent. It was going into fall over there. We're coming into spring here. It's going into fall there. The native population, the African people, and I'm just going to give you out the facts. I am not going to say I agree or disagree with their culture. I'm not trying to be racist or anything like that in any way, but there is a class system in Africa. There absolutely is. Right, wrong, or indifferent, there is. There are black people who were born and raised there. There are people who are considered colored, who have a little more education, maybe have a few more skills than the base group, and they're considered colored. And then there are the whites.
Question.
Yes.
So, I'm sorry.
He said questions later.
No, but go ahead.
No, okay, so if you're considered black, you do not have an education. Is that what you're saying?
They have some education. They can have some education, but what is really sad, and this was quite a jarring learning adjustment for us. And I will say this: I hear all the time in our country, the black population, which I will preface this: God loves them as much as He does me. I'm not saying that they're all worthy of hell, and they all get all the love that He can possibly give them. So that's all out of the way. But in this country, they say, "Oh, I'm African American." The black people in this country would never for 1 second be black in Africa. Not for 1 second would they want to trade those people places.
So,
The things I saw is unbelievable. So to your point, we know English. I know a couple of languages actually. I'm fluent in redneck. I'm fluent in hillbilly, and I know a little bit of English, and a few words in German and a few words in Japanese. Over there, even the poorest people know many languages.
really?
The people that are uneducated, because you have to. The white people all know English, but that's not their main language. Their main language is Afrikaans. And the black people's main language is Khoisan. And then you have tribal languages. Some know Zulu, some know this, some are from Zimbabwe. They have another language and another language, another language. So all of this cultural mixing pot together, even if you are uneducated and you're living in below squalor, you probably can speak 2 or 3 languages because you have to. Because otherwise, in a room this many people in South Africa, there will be 12 different languages. It is a mess. We heard English very little. We heard, we saw very few white people, okay? Here, you see lots of white people, very few black people. Over there, I would see thousands of black people before I would see one white person. And I'm not being racist, judgment. God loves all of them, so don't even let that enter your mind. These are just the facts. There is some schooling. Some of the low class people in the societal sect over there. Now, like I said, I'm not saying for or against any. I'm just telling the facts. Some of them have some schooling. They may be able to read and write a little bit, but they have no life applications of any type. The culture really, really restricts them. Our government is wicked and corrupt and all these things. Theirs is times 1,000 of that. Our worst politicians would be their best politicians. The corruption is rampant over there. Very few, except in a few cases in the big cities, do the black people own anything. Very few own a car. The black people there walk everywhere. So if you are here and you're hungry and you hear there's work in Toledo, you walk. We make fun of Indiana roads. The worst roads in Indiana would be the best roads over there. Most of the roads we traveled on, we travel around in a Toyota diesel pickup truck, 4-wheel low, manual transmission. You're in first gear going 5 to 10 miles an hour down public roads because they're like this, or they're like this, or there's washouts, potholes, rocks, gravel, only wide enough for one vehicle. There's very few vehicles over there. So you're going what looks like a glorified deer trail, but it's actually a public road. It's just as wide as your vehicle, and tree branches are scratching the side of your vehicle most of the time. If another vehicle is coming from the other way, you know have a problem. You're going to have to back up, or they're going to have to back up and pull into the brush to let one go around. I don't know how many times I was like 10 mile an hour in a vehicle, hanging on all the time because nothing is smooth. If you need to go 50 miles over there, it may take you 3 hours because you go so slow. Always were goats in the road. You come into a little town, the goats are roaming free. The towns had dirt roads. There was like an interstate that was like a paved highway, which would be like a 127, and that was the main interstate, like the I-75. It was maybe as good as 127, maybe. The rest of the roads were rocks and washouts and potholes and just barely wide enough for one vehicle. First gear, diesel, 4-wheel drive low, 5 to 10 mile an hour was top speed because the roads were that bad. You're just shake your guts out all trying to get anywhere. The black people walk everywhere, everywhere. When I say they have some education, but they don't have life skills. The average wage for a black person, if they can find work, that over there the currency is called rand. Here we have the dollar. 1 US dollar is 20 rand. So they have the hopes of making 50 to 100 rand a day working a 12 to 18 hour day on a farm. So $2.50 to $5 a day in American money for working hard all day. The farms, a little farm is 5,000 acres is a little farm there. Most farms are several 100,000 acres, where they may have 500 acres devoted to 50 sheep, because that's all that can graze on it, because it's rocks and brush and very little grass and pock bush and different bushes. And goats are more sought after because they can eat more junk stuff than sheep can. But the funny joke is the goats are always out all the time because goats get through the fence and figure out how to climb over, burrow under, whatever. So in Africa, a fence is merely a suggestion for a goat. The goats are always loose everywhere. How many times would we be driving down the road and there'd be 200 goats in the road and you'd have to blow your horn and the goats jump off the sides of the little trail for you to get through? They literally walk everywhere. So we would leave camp at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to get up on the top of a mountain, whether we could drive as far as we could, hike up there, because the hunting was spot and stalk. Lots of cover, and it's rolling terrain, hills, valleys, mountains. You get up high where you can see with binoculars and a spotting scope, and you spot an animal a mile away, and then you figure out, how do I drop down this ravine, climb up the other side? And it was difficult. See hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of animals every single day. But being able to get to them, to be able to, by the time you climb down the mountain and get them to come up the other side, they've grazed and they've moved on and they're not there. So it was not easy as hunting as I thought. We used, for the guys, used a .270 and a .30-06 was the guns of choice. And the shots were anywhere from 300 to 420 yards. I'm not used to poking shots that long from this mountaintop to that mountaintop across the ravine with a gun that's not mine that I don't know. So the shooting was a little sketchy at times.
Did they at least let you zero it in before you start shooting?
One shot. Got one shot to warm up on opening morning.
Really?
Yeah. I killed 5 animals, and my son killed 7. The 5 animals that I killed was in the worst possible bottom of ravines, no roads, no nothing. So they literally would cut it in half or quarter it and carry it out. The first animal that I killed on day 2 was a kudu, which is a big, beautiful, if you saw any of my posts on Facebook, big, beautiful animals. but they literally have a pole and put it through part of the animal and on their backs and climb out this kind of steep rock terrain for a 3/4 of a mile hike to get back to the vehicle. And what really got me was I shot this at about 10 o'clock in the morning. There would be me and my professional hunter who was a white guide. And he had 2,500 acres of farmland. And he had several hundred goats and sheep and a few cattle and did guiding on the side. And Adam, with his farming operation, 2,500 acres and hundreds of animals, he made about $40,000 a year US. He would have 3 or 4 black guys that were farm helpers. Now, 2,500 acre farm, 640 acres in a square mile. So his farm was 5 miles long, up and down and terrain and rocks and ruggeds and cliffs. At 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 or 4 of these African guys would leave in the dark, where there is also lions, leopards, cobras, puff adders, scorpions, hyenas, all this kind of stuff that attack and eat their livestock, which is a problem. They don't like that happening. But these guys would go out in the dark, no flashlights, but they could see pretty well after dark. Go out in the dark for miles and miles and miles and round up all these animals to bring them in to be sheared, to be kidding, to be having lambs. The average worker over there would probably walk 20 miles a day up and down in steep country for $2.50 a day. And after 5 days of work, then they would get a week off. So if they were really, really good and they made 25 to 50 American dollars, the sad part is, and this is where the education comes in, one of the men, Cephas, had 7 children from multiple women. None of them were his wife. The men, because where there's no vision, the people perish. People perish. It's not godly. It's not family-based. The culture is not that way. He would get his paycheck, and he'd get this money, and he would walk 20, 30 miles to the nearest town and go into the pub and get drunk and be a big player because he had some money, and the wife and the kids went hungry, or the girls and the children went hungry. He would come back to work when he was hungry. It really hit me on day 2 how bad they had it. One of the African trackers by the name of Kaznati asked me, "Sir, what you do with this?" It was the gut pile. The intestines, the stomach, the heart, the lungs, the liver. It's 70 degrees. 70 degrees, they all had long sleeve coats on and sock caps. They're freezing to death because it's normally 120 in the summer. That's what they like. 70 degrees, they're freezing. He said, "What you do with this, sir?" Now remember, we're a mile from the truck. And I said, "Wow, I don't want it." It's what I would, throw in the fence row or, "Can I have it, sir?" "Yeah." So he took his jacket off and wrapped up this gut pile and put a stick through it and carried this gut pile, this animal, about a mile back to the truck. And as we were taking trips going back, I didn't have to carry anything. There was a bunch of them. I just had to carry me, and that was enough, and my gun and backpack. That's set in the back of our truck all day in 70-degree heat. And when we got back to camp, I told Adam, I said, "Look at this." I said, "You see that gut pile over there?" He goes, "Yeah, what are they going to do with that?" I said, "I think he's going to eat it." And when we were all done, he put it over into a bucket and started walking the 7 miles back to his mud house. That was a great find for him and his family after it sat in the hot sun all day long. They'll wash it in a dirty river and cook it over a little fire they built outside. Most of their houses were made from mud with layers of straw-like substance and mud for a roof. Very eye-opening how bad people have it. Anybody in Van Wert County or Mercer County, anybody, the poorest person you can think of is wealthy compared to over there. In all of this walking everywhere, there's nothing to be going down these dirt roads or little paths. We call them county roads. The government never does anything with the roads ever. If you're in a town and you have a water main break and you don't have any water, it may be 6 months before the government gets around to fixing it. Problems, whenever you need the government, is merely a suggestion. They never follow through with anything. The whites are severely outnumbered, so they have black politicians who tell the black people whatever they want to hear. We're going to take all the land from the white people and give it to you. They make them promises, so they win the elections. They never follow through on any of the promises. It's a perpetual like that. They actually have started seizing lands from the white people and giving it to the black people, and within a couple of years, the land is completely destroyed. The houses have all the somewhat nice houses that the white landowners have. They tear them all apart and sell the wood. All the animals are immediately killed and slaughtered and eaten. They cut all the trees down. They actually, in our travels, they showed us a couple of big ranches that the government had seized from the white people and given to the natives and destroyed.
Because they're uneducated.
Well, they have no value or anything.
Yeah.
They have no value in anything.
They have no forward looking. It's like
Yeah.
now.
Right now.
Farming. There's very little farming. There's some citrus farming in a few places and onion farming. So the landowners will drive to a city, a town, a village is not really a city, it's dirt everywhere with goats running loose in this village, cattle, donkeys walking around. I mean, you got to watch out going through a town. You don't hit a donkey, a cow, a goat, or a sheep. Everything's just running wild. And wild animals too. They have kudu crossings and warthog crossing signs, and it's just bizarre. You're in a third world country. To Zach's point, this was mind-boggling. When it come time to pick the citrus and come time to pick the crops, the farmers would take their Toyota trucks with the livestock sides on them, their diesel trucks, and they would go into the village and say, "We have work. Who wants work?" Well, when they're hungry, they want to work. So they would get in, and they said, "We pay $2.50 American." So that would be 50 Rand for every basket you can fill. And a good worker could fill 12 to 15 baskets a day and make bank over there, which would be big money for them. Said without fail every time, because they have no life experience or no morals or no structure. He said they pick them up at daylight, they take them to the fields and show them the baskets, and it's, make as much as you want, pick as many baskets, get paid. They get them started, go on their way, come back in a couple of hours, every one of them, 30 workers, laying down sleeping under a tree. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. They've picked 1 or 2 baskets, they're done for the day. That'll get them food for today. They don't bank ahead, they don't look ahead. The culture is not that way. Culture is not a family structure. The men drink a lot. They don't take care of the women and the children. Saw begging everywhere. Drugs, they have what's called monkey weed. They can get some tobacco and mix it with marijuana, and it's monkey weed. So a lot of the people, and I saw a couple of the trackers would get these little weird cigarettes out, and they're on monkey weed. No structure for the family unit at all. Now, a colored person would be somebody that would be a little better in that. We had one considered colored. I mean, they look the same, but it was considered the colored class, named Dylan. He could speak 3 or 4 languages, but he was 30 years old, and he said, "I make no babies, sir. There's no future in that. No babies, sir." The way he talked. And he was very polite, and, and he would always take care of everyone. "Sir, you need something to drink, sir?" It was really weird. But he got to eat with us. The blacks never did. He got to ride inside the pickup truck. The blacks never did. They don't ask to. They know their place. They say they don't want to. When we went out for an all-day excursion, there was the cook, these are Christian people, would pack a lunch. Our lunch was different than the trackers' lunches. That's just the way it was. And they said they treat those people better than the non-Christian people do.
Non-Christian people might not even bring them lunch.
Yeah.
We
We
paid
had,
you $2.50 for today.
I spent 2 days hunting an African lynx, which is like a bobcat or a lynx in America. And they really want them hunted because they kill their sheep and goats and livestock. 2 days. I took a lot of pictures. There was a lot of things I refused to take a picture of because of the depravity of man. I was not going to humiliate the people even further by taking a picture. I saw some things that were life-changing. I told you people walk everywhere, and they have no vision, and they're drunk, and they're on drugs, and they walk everywhere on crappy roads, and there's no city lights in the future. It's dark. They call it the dark continent because there's no electricity.
They probably didn't have shoes either, did they?
A lot of them don't have shoes. Some do, a lot don't. How many, raise your hand if you've ever driven down the road and saw a roadkill, deer dead alongside the road. Have you ever seen that?
There's one this morning.
Yeah.
Right by the shell station.
Yeah. I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, did you see it?
Yeah, it's crazy here in town. I saw people as roadkill laying alongside the road.
Oh my gosh.
You saw what, I'm sorry.
I
People.
saw people laying alongside the road as roadkill.
Now, how did you, how'd you-
I would not take a picture of that. I did
No,
not.
but mentally, how did that?
Like,
I
what
just
would the
can't
guide
imagine.
say? Like, they
The guide said
murdered
that
or-
is not an uncommon thing. The police will not even look into it.
Yeah.
Was it-
So they probably got killed, murdered.
No, they got hit by a vehicle.
Oh,
Because
just
you're
left.
you're driving somewhere in the pitch black, okay? It's darker than dark, and they're walking alongside the road, or you come up over a hill doing 30 mile an hour, and they're in the middle of the road because they don't know any better, and bam, and whoever hit them drove off.
So these are like country roads you're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, one was a highway. One was a highway. When we went back to the airport the last day, we saw one on a highway, and there he was. There was a car pulled over, but there was a man laying dead. I don't know. Here's the edge of the road, this far in, laying dead. His shoes, he did have shoes. His shoes were knocked off. He was dead. Got whacked by a car. And they said that was not uncommon because they're walking everywhere, and there's so many of them, and they don't have flashlights. They don't have anything.
They probably don't have driver's license to.
Most do not.
go-
Almost none have licenses, and that's another difference. The colored boy had a driver's license, and he was working towards a car. He was trying to get a car. He was 30, and had just got a driver's license and working to save up money for a car. He had some skills, and I witnessed the gospel to him very hard because he could understand English, and he was very respectful. I didn't win him to the Lord, but he understood. Another crazy thing was this lynx hunt that I went on, this African cat. I tried 2 days to get one, unsuccessful. We went out hunting one afternoon, and the guide had to drive like 40 some miles to go get this tracker, who is a tall. There's none of them are fat. Okay, they're all.
No, skinny. Right.
Yeah, you're fat compared to them
Right,
over there
right.
because they don't get food very often. They don't get food. When a gut pile is a prized meal for your family, you're not eating well, okay? This tracker went and got him that afternoon when I went with Adam and the other guide. He made the long road trip to get him so we'd be ready to go at daylight. And he sent this tracker out at like 4 a.m. to start walking the mountains with this pack of hounds, which maybe if you saw the Facebook pictures, you saw that. These hounds, you could see their ribs and their hips, and they were malnourished. There was a few that looked like coon dogs and a few looked like dogs that were dumped out in the countryside. They were any kind of mix and breed, and you thought, what kind of a motley crew of dogs is this? But this was the African tracker. Young guy in his 20s, big scar across his face. Don't know how he got that big scar. His clothes were ripped and torn. He would normally walk 20 to 30 miles a day up and down the mountains to run these hounds all day long. Now, I was in a truck. He was walking with these dogs everywhere. They trailed some jackals, which is like a fox or a coyote couldn't catch. Well, they actually did catch one jackal. The dogs got in a big fight and they were way ahead. Killed a jackal, came back, had blood on it. He was frantically searching to find that jackal because if he does not get a kill, he does not get paid. When he showed up, the night my guide picked him up, he had a piece of foam about this long, and it had holes in it, and it was filthy. And he had a string around it. That was his bed. He brought the foam, and he had a little sack with probably enough dog food for one dog, and he had 15. He stayed in a mud hut with a dirt floor with no electricity, no running water, nothing to eat. He had no food for 2 days. The guide gave him one of our lunches, and he ate it in like 3 seconds. It's gone. He was very, very hungry, walking all of this distance. Those dogs walked so hard. When we were done on day 2, the dogs got in the back of the truck, and for 4 hours,
Didn't move.
they didn't move. You got 15 dogs in the bed of a pickup truck laying on top of each other. They didn't move. They had no energy. And he asked me, he goes, I need to run him home. Do you want to ride along? And maybe if we get him dropped off, we can hunt our way back. I said, sure. So, of course, he rode in the back with the dogs. When we got to where he lived, it was so disheartening that I refused to take any pictures. he had a house about this big. It was made out of mud. It wasn't straight, it was leaning. It had 2 pieces of rusty tin for a roof that I'm sure it leaked and rained in, and an open door. No way to close the door. You walked in and you're basically somewhat out of the elements. And he had a little chicken wire kennel about the size of this opening here for them 15 dogs. There was one dog standing there and it walked like this. You could see its hips, see its ribs, see all of its bone. It was sunken in. And there was a second dog there, dead, emaciated. They were literally starving to death. And because we did not get a caracal, he got paid nothing. I got a credit card. They said travel with a credit card. I got no way to help him. He don't have a card reader. I can't Venmo him. You know, I have no way to physically help him other than I gave him some of our food. I gave him my lunch when we got there. But I thought, the physical in me thought, take a picture of this because the people back home won't believe how these people live. But the humanity in me said, don't do it. Do not do it. So I've described it, but I was not going to humiliate him any further by taking a photo. The missionary that was kidnapped, they not only don't want the gospel, but they see that as a way to make some money. So when we were in Port Elizabeth, he was kidnapped the same time we were in that town at the same time. We as Americans would potentially be kidnapped because that would be a way for them to possibly get some money. The corruption is rampant. We ran into another hunter who was from Missouri. Him and his father, like me and Adam, father and son. They are over through Africa and they're coming back through customs in Johannesburg, same place that we went through. And he said they were running late, threw their stuff packing together. They didn't want to miss their plane. They get there. He's got his hunting clothes on. He goes through the scanner. Beep, 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 beep. They run a scanner. In his pants pocket, he had like regular pants and then a lower pocket. He had a round of ammo.
Oh.
1 round.
No.
Not good in an airport.
Especially
did-
in foreign country.
In a foreign country. He did not realize it was there. He said, I totally screwed up. He's telling this in Washington, D.C. when we met him at customs in Washington, D.C., which we got completely searched for agricultural reasons. They want to make sure it didn't have any blood for any diseases. They want to make sure our boots, they took our boots out and scrubbed them and our shoes and scrubbed them so we didn't bring in any invasive species for agriculture. It was the U.S. Department of Agriculture that pulled us out of the line because we were loose in the interior of Africa.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they don't want any bugs or any plant diseases, so they scrubbed our stuff down. But anyway, he said the customs agent in Johannesburg, this is the corruption, he said they pulled him off to the side and said, you're going to jail. We are calling the police. And he said, I panicked. I got to catch a plane. I can't go to jail. And what would the conditions be in South African jail?
Yes,
Worse.
Yeah, like Paul and Silas type conditions, I'm sure. So he says, what can I do to make this go away?
Give me some money.
And he said the customs official said, follow me, and they went in the restroom, and he did this. And he said, I got my wallet out, and I put some American dollars there, and he kept it out. And I put more, and he kept it out. And when I'd put enough, he closed his hand, took the bullet, and threw it in the trash, and said, go. You try to go through an American airport with live ammunition, you're going to prison. But over there, nothing. The corruption is rampant everywhere. Everywhere. The animals were bigger than I thought they were going to be. I mean, my kudu was 600 pounds, way bigger than a
Is
deer.
that your first one?
My first one, yeah, with a big spirally horns. Isn't that
Yes,
beautiful?
I was like, that thing is a beast.
Yeah, and my water buck was like 700 pounds, the last animal I shot. We got to eat some of it. It was very delicious. The cooking, we had a lot of African dishes over there. Most everything was made over the fire in front of us. They did have an African woman. She would have been considered colored because she worked in the house. Oh, here's an interesting one. This plays into me because I'm allergic to poisonous snakes. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm allergic to great white sharks and stuff like that. They have all that stuff. We were at the campfire one night, and a scorpion come walking up close to our feet. And one of the African trackers, who would have been one of the blacks, Cephas, he walks up and says, no problem, sir. And he picks it up, and he takes it over here and drops it. and takes his heel. He had no shoes. Stomped it. A scorpion! Like this big scorpion. I'm like, you're crazy. Dylan, the colored boy, told in our camp, this lady Marley had a little boy named Andreas. He was 2. This summer, which a few months ago, Andreas was playing in the yard, and Dylan come walking through and noticed the boy was sitting in the grass playing, and coming towards him was a puff adder. One bite from a puff adder or a black mamba or a cobra, you're dead in 20 minutes. And the nearest medical attention is 5 or 6 hours away, if you could get there. You're not getting a chopper, you're not calling 911. You probably can't even use your phone to make a call. So what did Dylan do? He went over there with a stick and killed this 6-foot-long deadly puff adder, went over and beat it to death with a stick. Earlier in the summer, another one of the guys named Anele, a black young guy, had very bright eyes, smiled all the time, couldn't speak much English. He was walking by the main house where the white people lived, and the front door was open because it's 115 degrees. Okay, no air conditioning, by the way. Have fun sleeping in that. And he noticed something going across the kitchen floor. A cobra. A cobra in your house. So he alerted my guide, and they made a bunch of opened the back door and made a bunch of noise, and the cobra came out. I said, "What did you do?" And Nelly said, "I got a shovel. When he rise up to bite me, I knock him down, and I chop him up with shovel."
Dinner.
I'm not messing it. Exactly. Then they ate it. I'm not messing with no cobra that's doing this, ready to spit on me or to bite me. But that's all they know. That's all they know. Crazy.
One quick, what did they do with the meat? Didn't you say they donated?
Yes, and I was wrong on that.
Oh, okay.
I was wrong on that. That's what the impression we were given. The meat is owned by the landowner. Okay? Like I said, this farmer of, 3,000 acres, his total revenue is about 40 grand American a year. So even the white people are poor compared to our standards. If you have a factory job in the United States, you're making more than the 10,000 acre farmers are over there. They make very little money. So how the wild game works is they have fences everywhere for keep the sheep in and the cattle, but the goats go wherever they want to go. They're out all the time because that's just the way goats are stubborn. But a fence this high, what does a deer and a kudu and a pala do? They jump it. So Zach and I are neighbors. This is how the economy works over there. I've got a 5,000 acre farm, and Zach's got a 23,000 acre farm, and mine's 5 miles, and his is 10 miles. This game's just going wherever. Well, these outfitters get permission from all the farmers in the area. Hey, can I hunt your property? And they're like, sure, that's $. They get paid. So if I want to shoot a kudu and it's $2,000, just make round numbers, the farmer gets 50% and the meat. So, Mr. Farmer, you got a kudu that's eating what little grass you got for your sheep. Do you want him dead? Sure. You're going to get 300 pounds of meat, feed your family, or you can sell. You're in. You get half of the take. The outfitter, Mark's running an outfitting business. He comes in, brings 100 to shoot an animal on your land. You get $1,000 and all the meat to use for your family. Are you in? You're in. All the landowners are in. Now, this kudu yesterday was on Zach's property. He hopped over onto my property. I get paid Zach Knoll. Maybe the kudu's lived on your property for 8 months, but he got shot on my side. I get the money, you get out. And then the guts or the offalls, the workers can have. That's kind of how that works. The taxidermy over there, they took us to the taxidermy, the largest taxidermy company in the world called Splitting Image. They have 300 employees mounting animals. Unbelievable. A warehouse about the size of Danfoss facility with 300 people mounting all these exotic animals at once. It's unbelievable. That is one of their main sources of income over there. Poaching is a very, very big problem. These animals have value. That kudu on your property is potentially worth $1,000. Do you want somebody coming on your property and shooting it for free and taking the meat? No, you do not. They will shoot poachers and kill them. The endangered species like the rhinos and the hippos and the rhinoceroses especially. We went to a large concession which was a small farm, like 385,000 acres. Okay? The poaching has got so sophisticated, like organized crime, they use helicopters now. A rhinoceros, and they're endangered. I've got videos and pictures I posted on Facebook of some rhinoceroses that we saw on this concession where there's absolutely no hunting. All of the concession and all the things that they do is paid for by hunters' dollars. So they love hunting, but you're not allowed to hunt there. The organized crime poaching ring, 2 years ago, they had 3 rhinoceroses on their 285,000 acre concession. They came in with a helicopter in the middle of the night, shot the rhinoceroses and cut the horns off. You know the rhinoceros has that horn in the front? In China, in Vietnam, in Asian countries, that is their Viagra pill, essentially. 1 gram, which isn't very much, 1 gram of rhinoceros horn powder is worth 15,000 American dollars, which would be times 20 in African rand. So 1 rhinoceros horn is worth several $1 million in American currency. So these poor people will risk getting machine gunned down by law enforcement and fly on a helicopter to kill a rhinoceros. And the crazy thing is about the rhinoceroses being endangered, that horn, 3/4 of the horn is like your fingernail. It grows. It could be cut off and the rhinoceros would live and it would regrow. But getting 3/4 isn't good enough. They want all of it. So this is part of their thing. They'll kill the rhinoceros, get a one-time harvest, and then there won't be a harvest ever again down the road. They're more extinct. When they could dart it and not kill it and cut half of it off, and they could come back in 2 years and do it again. But they don't have the understanding that they'll just kill it. So now the concession has helicopters. They've had to buy helicopters and have machine guns mounted on the side for anti-poaching. And they will shoot poachers with machine guns to try to stop them, or they will eradicate the elephants, the lions, the rhinoceroses. They'll kill them all.
That's terrible. I mean,
But if you're making $2.50 a day living in squalor, and you could make 5 million American dollars by killing a rhinoceros, but it may cost you your life. It's a gamble they're willing to take.
okay, let's say they make that 5 million. What are they going to do with that money if they're that
They would get
much?
massively drunk and squander it all within a matter of months.
Really?
Because they don't have the understanding of that. It literally comes down to the reason they're a dark continent is they don't have the Lord. They don't have understanding. They don't have wisdom. They have lack of knowledge. Some are trying to get out of it, but that is their culture. We saw, and I posted a video on Facebook, we saw a protest. There was hundreds and hundreds of these black people singing and shouting protest, walking down the middle of the street. It's something they wanted the government to do for them. Although they are good at one thing in that culture.
Making sure.
They make a lot of children. But they do not tolerate pedophilia or child molesting. They will not go to the police because the police are corrupt. So if we live there and we all know that Bobby over here molested this little boy, little girl, and we believe we can prove it, the town will come out and grab Bobby and take him out to the edge of town and stone him to death. They will kill him. He won't go to trial. He won't get a jury. He won't sit in jail. They take the law into their own hands over there. So I thought, well, they don't tolerate children being messed with, so that's good.
That's a plus.
That was a plus.
I'm surprised they don't market their children to make money.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
Say that.
do you remember Mark Mayer? Mark Mayer called me yesterday morning and welcomed me back to the United States, and we talked for about 2 hours on the phone about Africa. And he said, when you see the world, it really opens your eyes to the depravity of man and the goodness of how good we have it, how the Lord has blessed us. He said he didn't go to Africa, but he said he went to Mexico. And he went to Juarez on a mission trip years ago. And he said he saw little toddlers living in the city dump with no parents. And they were eating whatever they could find in the dump and sleeping in the dump. And he said the missionary that took him and showed him this, he goes, it was just heart-rending. Little toddlers wandering around with no parents, crying and no clothes on and eating whatever they could find and sleeping in the dumps. And he said, why are there no parents? Well, the parents have abandoned them. They don't want them. They're a problem. Or they've been kidnapped or killed or whatever, the drug trade. But he said, why are there no older kids? And he said, once they get to be 8 or 9, boys or girls, they're put in the sex trade. And when they're old enough that they're no longer marketable, they get a bullet put in their head and they're thrown in a river or a canyon somewhere. So imagine being in that country and you're 8 or 9 years old, boy or girl, and you're kidnapped, just like that movie we saw a while back about God's children are not for sale. That actually happens all over the world. Now, I don't think that was a problem where I was. That was the problem. But the men know to go just impregnate as many women as they can and go out and get drunk and have a good time. And then the kids are hungry and starving. And it was, God's been good to us. We could have easily been born there. God loves those people. He sends missionaries there, sends people to witness to him, but they have to receive it. And they have to change.
When they're being witnessed to, do you get the sense that's the first time they have ever really heard about our God? Or do they they know it's there, they just don't embrace it?
That's a really hard one, because I talked to my guide about that, and he said they're non-committal. I mean, this young boy Dylan, I made friends with him and we joked around and we had fun and really was respectful to him and he was respectful to me. But when I was sharing Jesus with him, he was listening and respectful, but non-committal in any way, shape, or form. Muslim is a bigger thing over there. That's why they want all the goats. The goats are much more valuable than the sheep because of the Muslim impact, because the Muslims will eat the goat and not the sheep.
So you think they have, some of them at some point, been introduced to the Lord?
Yes, but
there
I
are
think there's a
definitely
cultural thing. You know, and Africa's not really a Muslim country overall. There's some there, but there's not really, there's some Christianity there. Obviously, the couple people that I met that love the Lord, but there's just all kinds of stuff there. They said that their church originally, many, many years ago, when they were a member of a church, was a Dutch Adventist Orthodox church or something. I'd never ever heard of it before. But they said they started going the way of same-sex marriage. So they had to get out. They separated from that, and now they're just doing their own home church kind of a thing because they're so isolated. So Sunday is the Lord's Day. They don't work other than I asked him, he said, yes, we would pull a lamb out of a pit if he fell in a ravine, but they're not going to work. They don't let their workers work. They don't hunt. That was the day we went on the safari where we drove around and saw the elephants and the hippos and all that kind of stuff. There's no working, no hunting or anything like that. But imagine you're out in the middle of nowhere and that's the way you worship the Lord. And so to have another Christian come in from the outside and encourage them, they were just blown away because most of their hunters aren't going to be Christians that love God. They're going to be there just to kill animals. And he said with his farming operation, with almost 3,000 acres, he can't make enough money to support his wife and one child on farming with 2,500 acres. And he can't make enough money guiding 1 or 2 clients a month on hunting. So he's kind of doing both, but not really successful enough on either one to stand on his own. And he makes around 40,000 American dollars a year with that kind of an operation.
Sorry to interrupt you, but is $40,000 over there enough for them to live for a year? I mean, for here.
Yes, they can get by and do okay, but they're not, you know, he would like to build a building to be able to have his, you know, goats and sheep have their stuff in there. He can't afford to do that. He'd like to build better quarters for the workers instead of a mud hut, but he don't have the money to do that.
So the 40,000 just gets him through on the basics.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Because everything is so remote and everything is so expensive. So anyway, we need to be dismissed. And next week we've got the Easter meal, so we won't have